Elon Musk is finally fighting a genuine free speech battle. Twitter, now called X, says a California law violates the social media site's First Amendment rights. Now, the first problem that we're having right off the bat here is you're saying that a law that the government is passing is violating your rights. Now, the problem is the government doesn't care about that. The government doesn't care about that, and there's no way to hold the government accountable for it. So, fighting a losing battle already. Maybe Elon could pull it off because he's the world's richest man, but who knows? In September 2022, 1 month before Elon Musk took over Twitter, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed AB 587 into law. Dubbed by its proponents as a transparency law, the state statute requires large social media companies to publicly post their content moderation policies and hand over lots of data to the government about their decision making and enforcement. This is, of course, being done to make sure that social media sites are towing the government and party line, to make sure that they are going after the type of speech that the government wants rid of while allowing all the types of speech that the government wants to promote. Basically, all the left-wing authoritarianism stuff, governments fucking love that shit. You know, you can go around and shout, punch TERFs, kill Nazis, murder right-wingers, you can do all that stuff until the cows come home, that's absolutely fine. But if you post something like, I think maybe there should be a few more checks at the border, boom, you're done. California will not California will not stand by as a social. As I'm sorry, I'm very sick. I've got the cold, which is why I'm all bunged up and coughing. I'm trying my hardest, boys. I've got a lot of these to film. California will not stand by as social media is weaponized to spread hate and disinformation. I love how the spread hate and disinformation is always just stuff that's against the government. It's weird that, isn't it? That threaten our communities and foundational values as a country, Newsom said last year. Californians deserve to know how these platforms are impacting our public discourse, and this action brings much needed transparency and accountability to the policies that shape the social media content we consume every day. On September the 8th, Twitter, now called X, sued California, arguing the law infringes on its First Amendment rights. In the complaint, Twitter alleges the bill illegally interferes with the company's editorial process and pressures it to remove, demonetize, or deprioritize speech that the government finds problematic. So that is the government control of speech, the government controlling the flow of information. Now, back in the 90s, leftists would have hated that stuff. They would have been completely against it. Now, they want it because it serves their own ends, because they're massive hypocrites. But I know, I've done it. Imagine if the races were reversed, or imagine if a right winger did that. I'm past that stage now. They know what they're doing, right? You know, they know we're just being pussies about it now. We need to actually start doing stuff. The legislative record is crystal clear that one of the main purposes of AB 587, if not the main purpose, is to pressure social media companies to eliminate or minimise content that the government has deemed objectionable, Twitter's lawyers wrote in the complaint. In other words, Twitter has a legal right to moderate user-generated content in the manner that it sees fit, and the government hasn't demonstrated why it should be allowed to probe the company's policies and enforcement statistics. But of course, one of the phrases that we've heard many, many times over the last bunch of years is, oh, it's a private company and it can do what it wants. So obviously, every single leftist right now is going to be on Twitter absolutely defending this decision against a tyrannical government. Are they? No, they're not. Of course they're not. Because it's them that's fucking doing it. Transparency laws are actually a great tool for censors. California's transparency law isn't a clear-cut matter of censorship, but it is perhaps a more insidious form of government overreach. Eric Goldman, the professor at Santa Clara University School of Law, thinks Musk is right to sue. Oh, that's fine then. He says that transparency laws like California's are not only onerous, he personally counted 161 statistical disclosures mandated by AB 587, but also intrusive, sticking the government's nose in the editorial process of private media companies. Further, he's concerned about how laws like these might be weaponized by governments eager to censor or chill free speech, because that is the goal. Like, we're at the point where let's just be very, very honest about the entire thing. The government wants to have complete, absolute control of the free flow of information, right? They don't like it because that information. I'm fucking so tired and so ill. I keep getting my thoughts jumbled up. basically, if the government does very, very dodgy things, or the government's doing horrendous stuff, or the government wants to pass a law that has X, Y, Z, all these problems with it, with the internet and, telecommunication kind of just going absolutely haywire in the last 30 years, that information spreads really, really fast before the government can do anything about it. But if the government just comes in and, goes full firewall of China and shuts everything down, then there'll be massive kickback. So what it does is it does it in little tiny baby steps, just piece by piece, just a little bit. That thing that Peterson says where the government will encroach until everyone starts screaming, and then it will stop, and then it will encroach again, then stop, then encroach again, then stop, and then bam, 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 until eventually you're not going to be able to post a cat picture online without getting your fucking door kicked in. And that's the goal. They want to control it because the internet has delivered like amazing things to everybody, and the government loves it because it's an effective communication tool for basically spying on fucking everyone. But the problem is it's too free to the point where they don't like the amount of information that's getting shared around everywhere about them and calling them out and influencing public opinion against the government. The government obviously does not like that. It wants to protect its own power. Transparency laws are actually a great tool for censors, Goldman says. It gives them the opportunity to ask for information they otherwise should not be entitled to, and to make their target's life miserable in a way that will change their editorial choices. That's a very nice social media site you've got there. It'd be a real shame if we were to get the SEC involved. The Electronic Frontier Foundation, good people, a digital rights advocacy group, would not comment on Twitter's litigation, but agreed that AB 587 was a major threat to companies' First Amendment rights. EFF supports voluntary commitments like the Sorry, I'm still very sick. Like the Santa Clara Principles, which encourage transparency into how companies handle user-generated content, but feels that government mandates go too far. The First Amendment protects the right of private entities to exercise editorial control over speech and speakers on their properties or platforms. EFF's Hayley Sukiyama said in a statement, just as the government would not require news outlets to file regular reports to explain their editorial decisions, it should not seek to require companies to detail their judgments to do the same. Now, the reason that the news and newspapers don't get asked to do that is they're already a branch of the government, right? All the big editors at these newspapers are government stooges. They are going to, they're either controlled opposition or they're the government's good little useful idiots to influence public opinion. Transparency laws, she added, open the door to government demands to restrict speech or shut down access to vital communication services. Elon Musk is no free speech purist. No, he's fucking definitely not. Musk, one of the world's richest men, bought Twitter with a promise to restore free speech on the platform. And he kind of has, but I've said this many times, I feel like a broken record. He's dropped the ball so many times. Musk, who supported the Obama administration, but in more recent years has aligned himself with a number of Republican causes, claimed that Twitter's previous leadership had censored right-wing users through heavy-handed content moderation policies, which... I mean, we didn't need Musk to tell us that. I mean, we were there, we were living it, we saw it. We saw everyone, we were in the trenches seeing everyone around us getting struck with shrapnel and artillery and all that stuff. And it's, this guy has he's gone. This guy, that happened an awful lot. In reality, Twitter had merely adopted policies forbidding hate speech. Your arse, don't fucking lie. Don't lie, because would you want to know the fun thing is, the majority of the major figures that got banned, everyone's like, oh yeah, well, Milo and Sargon and fucking and all that all get banned, and everyone's like, for hate, they actually weren't. There's actually, we were talking about this not that long ago. Out of all the big major right-wing figures that got their accounts deboosted or just outright banned, we couldn't find an actual example of genuine hate speech, because to me, hate speech is the N-word or something like that, right? But we couldn't find any actual examples of that. It's just the right-wing users are more likely to engage in hate speech, and it's no, what you've done is you've just branded right-wing opinions as hate speech. Because all this anti-white people stuff, I mean, that's hate speech by definition, but what you've done is that's not hate speech, that's fine, because you control the definitions of what is and isn't hate speech, and obviously anything that goes against your authoritarian ideology, you're going to class it as hate speech. It's the Stalinist approach. Right? Right-wingers are more likely to engage in... okay. Jews are more likely to engage in Jewish behaviour, would you believe? and we've decided that Jewish behaviour is illegal. That was a joke. That was a joke. It was just the best example I could come up with on the spot. I'm still very, very unwell. What Musk on factor? I missed a bit. And started placing warning labels next to some of what is considered misinformation, particularly falsehoods around COVID vaccines and elections. Even though a lot of the people that you banned for the original Wuhan lab leak theory and all that type of stuff, and the things about how the vaccines were being made and the testing, all turned out to be true. So you were banning the truth back then. So it wasn't misinformation. You were actually stifling the truth, which is, I mean, you're a social media website that was in the pocket of the government, so of course that's what you were doing. What Musk has never seemed to grasp is that Twitter wasn't censoring users, but rather exercising its own constitutionally protected speech. Yes, individuals have free speech rights under the First Amendment, but so do companies. The Constitution forbids censorship by the government, not by companies like Twitter, which is true. It absolutely is true. And in an ideal world, social media companies wouldn't have an absolutely atrocious amount of red tape and regulations and licenses and fucking all this other stuff that they need to get that locks out more enterprise unless people have enough capital, where a shit ton of competitors could all pop up all over the place. Unfortunately, we don't have that. Twitter was the one that managed to establish itself before all that stuff kicked in. Welcome to controlled capitalism. But so, unfortunately, Twitter is where everyone flocked to, and it's where all the conversation and engagement was happening. That's why, even though you've got Minds is a really good platform. I like the layout. I like the way it works. I do enjoy Minds. The problem is they don't have enough people there, and people who have a message or if they want to promote a platform or a type of content are going to go to where there is more people. So, for example, if you're a comedian and someone gives you the opportunity to open for a pub down the road or the fucking O2 Academy, like, what are you going to pick? Right, it's a no-brainer. However, if there's multiple O2 Academies all over the place and basically the user base is being shared, then it can be a little bit more fair. Unfortunately, that isn't the case. And Twitter is still the daddy when it comes to that, which means whoever controls Twitter can literally control the outcome of elections. And that's the problem that we have. Meanwhile, despite his supposed free speech ideals, Musk has given prime placement in tweet replies to paying users, blocked external links to competitor websites, suspended journalists who criticised him, banned the college student tracking his private jet, and took down user posts to comply with the oppressive demands of regulators in India and Turkey. This has obviously been given from a left-wing perspective, but that's all correct. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Like, he shouldn't have banned any of those people, especially for like basic bitch criticism and stuff like that. I get people sending me like death threats and shit like that online all the time. I've never called for them to be banned. Like, because it's just, pixels on the screen, terrible, horrifying. But, I mean, not everyone's like me. I would imagine if you were a woman and you get sent like a threatening message from your violent ex, then yeah, okay. You would have a right to be terrified, but everyone's different. And under Musk, Twitter has from time to time policed hate speech, notably suspending Ye, the rapper once known as Kanye West, for posting anti-Semitic screeds on the site in December. Excuse me for just one moment. I'll mute the microphone. I'll be nice. My nose hurts so much from blowing it all the time. But yeah, basically, it's not just that. Alex Jones, Musk just flat said he couldn't come back to the platform. Nick Fuentes get banned. Pretty much all the big figureheads from Patriotic Alternative all got banned all at the same time. And it's a case of, right, that's not just, wow, they must have all got reported for hate speech at the same... No, it was a concerted effort, and there's suspicion that it was pressure from the British government that tried to do it. The fact that they all get taken down on the same day, I mean, it's pretty fucking obvious. But that's other things that Musk has dropped the ball on. He has been handing information over to governments and stuff like that. Despite his chest puffing, Musk is no free speech absolutist, but in suing California and pushing back on a government eager to interfere with a private media company's editorial decisions, Musk is finally fighting a real battle for freedom of speech. This person strikes me as an old leftist who has drank the Kool-Aid a little bit. Who is it? Scott Nova. Yeah, and Scott Nova seems like a 90s leftist where, very fortunately, he still has the ideals of being against government overreach and surveillance and etc., etc. But he is kind of late modern, probably likes his pronouns and stuff like that. But yeah, still, there's a multiple fronts that the free speech battle's been fought on. I do believe that Musk taking over Twitter was a net good. I do believe it was a positive. Like, because let's face it, like, things are better on Twitter, but there is still censorship. There is still all people getting their accounts taken down and stuff like that. So, I mean, imagine what it would be like now if it was still Jack who had no fucking idea what was happening in his own company and all that. I mean, I think he knew. I'm pretty sure that Jack actually knew. He was just plain stupid. But yeah, we'll sit back and we will see how this one goes.